You start at any moment.
No, let's just go ahead and start.
What was your what was your project yesterday about?
Pharmaceuticalization. Do you have any idea what that is?
Well, I assume it has to do with pharmacies.
Yeah.
But what did your
Pharmaceuticalization, if I remember correctly, is basically
You just did a project about it.
the beginning of
What
a
do you mean?
project.
I thought you said something was due yesterday.
Yeah, we're doing this project
was it the
in
outline
segments.
or something?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's an outline.
it was like an outline of it? Okay.
And so it's basically saying that your health depends on, not necessarily depends on drugs, but like, it's kind of like they use the advertisement for Viagra as an example a lot. It's something that pharmaceuticalization ties hand in hand with medicalization, which is like all these inane things that potentially could now be something dealing with health, such as what Viagra.
Did you just laugh at Viagra?
The use versus the push of Viagra. We're actually doing stimulants.
Viagra.
Such as like ADHD. Viagra. But we're on this specific project. We're looking at like ADHD medication and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just kind of the push for drugs and how
Work or don't work?
the push for drugs, and that's why there's a lot of these advertisements for drugs.
And you did all this yesterday?
Kind of the monopolization of drugs too, in a sense. I could look up a definition for you if you would like. Yeah, we did the outline yesterday. So the first definition that pulls up is the process by which social, behavioral, or bodily conditions are treated or deemed to be in need of treatment or intervention with pharmaceuticals by doctors, patients, or both. So basically, your health, that's kind of what I was saying, your health not depends on drugs, but, no, yes, no.
Your health does. I would say most people argue that your health does not depend on drugs.
I know, but it's. I don't know.
Would you like to know what I did yesterday? Sure. Well, I went to the church near my house, which is not too far away, and that one has a lot of old people in it, so I don't think I'm going to fit in very well. So probably need to. It was called Churchill Baptist Church. And it's just not, seemed like there's a bunch of old people there. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit in very well with a bunch of older people. And before I did that, I woke up. I watched that Zodiac Wars show. And that's interesting. If you don't know what that's about, audience of millions, it will have been out for years now. My audience of millions who are listening to this the very first time or the second time back around. It is a show where I guess there's some sort of tournament or just shootout, and there's 12 different people from the like Chinese zodiac who are representing like horse, dragon, ox, boar, whatever, and they need to kill each other, and one gets a win. Granted, there's only been 2 episodes so far, so I've only seen 2 episodes, and it's probably going to be 12 episodes, so they just kind of throw you in without explaining or setting anything up, so whatever. This one just kind of throws you into whatever's happening.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true, but animes are usually very, like, fast-paced when doing it, I feel like.
Some of them.
When they set you up. I don't know. I specifically just remember Death Note just being, like, the first episode, and I was like, oh, we're already into this.
But, yes, some of them do, but some of them don't.
When I guess I just I thought that maybe it would take like a couple episodes to like introduce all the characters and to. No, very first episode drops the Death Note, and that's it. We meet Ryuk, and there we go.
Yeah, that one picks it up pretty quick, but that one kind of. It's a pretty easy concept of, oh, you write this and it kills people. All right, let's start. But this one, you're just like, oh, okay, so there's a competition, and you're like, okay, and there's some organization that's mentioned, and you're like, I guess this is just the organization that funds this or hosts this, and I don't know. Not many details are revealed, and you're kind of confused. I also went ahead and watched 7 episodes of Sopranos, 6 episodes of Sopranos.
Is that on Netflix?
No,
I didn't think it
no,
was.
nothing of HBO is on Netflix. It's on Amazon Video.
Oh, okay.
No, nothing of HBO is on Netflix that I know of. There's a couple Showtime things that may be on Netflix, but I don't know about. Nah, there's no HBO.
Yeah,
Maybe a stand-up special or two, but probably not even that.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the first episodes of season 3 of Haikyuu, which is the volleyball anime.
Oh, okay.
Haikyuu.
I didn't know that's what
It's called Haikyuu, and that'll introduce us to what a lot of this episode is going to be about, which is where we want to talk about. We're going to talk about some sports anime, and I wanted to go back to the first one that I saw, and I'll just set up the scene for you. So Naruto Uzumaki is a underachieving ninja, and he is an outcast, and he doesn't know why. And it is revealed to him that the demon fox destroyed his village 12 years ago, has been sealed in his body, and everyone in the village but him has known it. And so he wants to prove himself and become the king ninja of his vision, the Hokage. It's not Naruto. It was actually Friends of Tennis, which is probably a lot complicated plot of just tennis. And so, when I say Prince of Tennis, do you know what I'm speaking about? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, because that's the thing, is that I haven't watched a lot of anime in general, and I haven't watched nearly as much as you have.
Nope.
But I also haven't watched a lot of sports animes.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've seen a couple episodes here and there of different ones, but I've never really sat down and watched them all the way through.
Well, then you may be the audience that I'm speaking to, and may not be the audience that I'm speaking to. But
well, what would be interesting is if you have me on and we kind of talk about versus if you have someone who I don't know who knows anime.
Well, then
a lot
we
more,
maybe
who does watch,
we might just be nerding
anime.
out the entire time. Is what I'm thinking. We'll just be like, oh, and then that part where Makanuchi just beating the crap out of Ethan Hawke. That is from Hajime no Ippo, New Challenger, and we might just be nerding out about that. So we'll get to that show as well. But no, let's start with Prince of Tennis, which is one that I didn't really ever get into, and let me explain to you why. It actually came on Toonami around the same time. No, a little bit after Naruto. After they started putting Naruto on, they put it next to a show called Mare as well. And what they did with both those shows on Toonami is they showed the first 2 episodes, and then they skipped 22 episodes in. So it really never had a chance to take off. Because they just went, all right, so, you get it, set up. Let's go into the action. And you're like, well, I'm lost. Who are these characters? And what is the point of what's going on here? All of a sudden, Mare was in this tournament, and as anime do, especially sports anime, the Prince of Tennis was also in this tournament. So it really never got a chance nobody got a chance viewing it from Toonami to get into it, because it just immediately went into nothing. It just went into this storyline that nobody was invested in because they didn't know any of the characters. So we'll get back to Toonami and the role it has played into some of these things. Do you know what goes on in Haikyuu though? How about that one?
No, I don't know the volleyball one. Really, I think I may have seen 1 or 2 episodes, and I don't even remember. A lot of it was during a tournament, and it does that stereotypical anime thing where it just keeps someone makes a play, and then they spend 5 minutes talking in the moment about that play, and then it actually that play is done, and then somebody else hits the ball, and then they spend another 5 to 10 minutes slowly talking about that while the ball is just like slow motion hurtling through the air.
Right.
That's all I can remember.
That sounds right. They'll go through a whole bunch of plays of spike, hit the ground, spike, hit the ground, spike, hit the ground. And it's like important points. And then all of a sudden it goes real slow. And it's like, oh, if I have to save this ball, oh no, it's going this way. And they go into like the techniques and everything that they need for that. They're like, no, I can't jump for it here. I need to, back up. And they like backs up and he blocks it. And it was like, oh no, he blocked it.
Yeah, they talk about technique, and then they also like have a 10-minute flashback during the play.
That happens a lot less than several other shows, but for a sports anime, I feel like that happens quite a bit.
Yeah, that's what I mean in general.
I think we can get. There is something that I do want to get into later on, but I'm glad you brought up flashbacks. So, explain to me what you think Haikyuu is about.
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, pass the
volleyball. I remember it's something about volleyball. I can't remember if it was a girls' team or a guys' team. It's a guys' team, isn't it?
Yeah, high school.
Yeah,
it's a boys' high school volleyball team. That's it? You just know?
That's it.
Anything beyond that. Anything beyond the very surface level.
Is that the one where the main character is small?
Yes.
Okay.
Why?
That's
okay.
It.
Okay.
That's all I really know. I don't know the volleyball one.
And what do you think about the main character being small? Do you think that's an advantage to him?
Well, I think it would have to deal with the position he plays. What does he play?
He plays, I believe it's right wing striker. So he's supposed to be one of the guys that's up at the net. So his entire thing is he wants to... Let me explain it. Let's just go into it. It is a show about Hinata, who is a short boy who always liked volleyball and knew very little about volleyball. And all of a sudden, his last year in middle school, he just gathered up a bunch of friends who were on other teams. There was one on the basketball team and like one on track and like one on the soccer team. And he's like, I just want to gather up a group of people so I can play volleyball. And they get trounced by a school where his nemesis and soon to be friend, oh no, I forgot his name. Doesn't matter. It was a guy who was called King of the Court. And you realize why that may be that might be a compliment, and why it may also be an insult later on in the series. But they end up going to the same high school. This all happens in like episode 1. At the very end of episode 1, they see that they're all of a sudden they're in the same high school too. And he has to learn how to play volleyball for real. Really the only thing he had going for him was he had like instincts for the game and that he could jump high. And a lot of this series is him trying to follow this like legendary character or legendary player from like 10 years ago that went to the high school, who was known as the Little Giant, who was also a short guy that could jump real high too.
So that's the premise of it?
Yes, and the whole team wants to prove that they're not losers anymore.
Oh, cool.
It's all right. Now, there is a show that I know you've watched at least a little bit of, that you know at least a little bit out, and that is Free, which is a swimming anime, or at least I know you know about it.
I know about it.
What about it do you know?
I know that it's a swimming anime.
Okay. What about the characters? What do you know about the characters?
Is that the one? There's this video that's going around about there's a guy who can't swim, and then he gets into the pool and he's like choking and like struggling to get across, and it's like really funny, and then he gets to the end and he goes like something like nailed it, or I'm amazing at this, or something like that. And it's like it goes from like cheesy, like, you know, funny anime to like that serious, like
very well could be. I don't
know if that's
there was
that
a
one
guy
or not.
There's a guy that was a track runner that's in this show that he just sinks like a rock when he does anything but the butterfly. So there's that. That may be it. I don't know. I nailed it. Maybe. Could have been. Anything else about the characters that you noticed?
No.
Okay. What about how pretty they are?
Yeah.
What about how pretty it looks?
I mean, I also don't know much about the swimming anime either.
You don't know? I thought you've seen a couple of episodes of that.
I've seen more Yuri on Ice.
You've seen more Yuri on Ice? Okay. Give it a second. We'll get to Yuri on Ice. Free? Okay.
Why is it all free?
The main character, the only style that he'll swim is free. And that's a common motif throughout the entire show. Is that he doesn't want to swim anything but with his friends in a pool being free. He doesn't want to get tied down but anything. All he wants to do, wink wink, is swim.
Oh.
And he wants to do it free.
Okay.
In the Tabhi Swim Club. I believe that's the name of it. I believe the full title is Free Tabhi Swim Club. It's also has very, very many underlying, like, the boys want to make out undertones. Because there is several times where they give each other looks.
Yeah.
And they're trying to, like, beat each other, or they're trying to support each other, and you're like, this is a little weird that all these boys are so into each other. you're like this goes a little bit beyond teamwork and camaraderie. There's an episode in season 2 where a character, Sosuke, who was not in season 1, it like slams the like main antagonist and also like their friend as well, from back in the day, who's now like their rival, who was the main character's main rival, who's like he needs to be faster than this guy because this guy moved to Australia and got really fast at swimming because he moved to Australia for some reason, and apparently when people go to other countries they immediately get better. That's actually a pretty common theme in anime as well. Like, you'll see in the boxing anime, Hajime no Ippo, like, all of a sudden his rival, like, surpasses him because he takes the, like, transatlantic title or something like that, which is apparently better than the Japanese title, even though they're two different boxing organizations. But he's like, oh, he surpassed me. And he beats up a guy from Australia, ironically, I guess. But Sosuke slams Rin up against the wall, and he's like, don't talk to me about what I can do. I can swim just fine. He's like holding both of his hands against the wall, and he's like 6 inches away from his face. Yeah. Just that. Just that's a nice little example of how the entire show is, of them like yelling at each other. And one person, they cry. They cry too much for people that are just swimming. They're too passionate about people that are just swimming. They're crying about things.
But it's an anime, though. Of course they're going to be that passionate. It's anime. We briefly talked about Food Wars in the last one.
There's no crying in Food Wars. There's only crying when they eat. That's one thing I liked about Food Wars. There was no babies in Food Wars. They were tough cooks. There was no crying in Food Wars.
Well, they showed their passion in a completely different way, which is very sexually.
Sexually.
It's very sexual. It's a very sexual anime.
But there was no crying.
There's no crying, but there's just a lot of passion.
There's that like crying from the really sensitive character where they've got all the tears streaming down their face, that normal anime trope. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google just like anime chibi crying or whatever, and you'll see that like they have the little tears streaming down their face where it's like, oh, Itachi, I'm so proud of you, and they're like got these little streams down their face. They've got streams going, down their face, just like they're honestly crying a river. But there's no real crying in that show. I like shows when their crying actually means something, and that's different than Free. Free, they're just crying because they're just a bunch of sad boys.
Just a bunch of sad
boys. They're pretty boys doing good things at sports, which is
just
there's some
sad,
pretty boys like Gundam Wing, just sad, pretty boys.
Another one I don't know.
Gundam Wing was successful in America mostly because it was sad, emo, pretty boys who were at war, I guess.
Is that one?
The Gundams? Gundam Wing.
No, is that one?
Is that a sports anime? Absolutely not.
No. Okay. Well,
why would you think Gundam Wing? Gundam.
Because you brought it up. I didn't know if that was a segue or not.
Of course not. It's a Gundam. The closest thing to a sports anime in Gundam would be Build Fighters, which is like they build little replica Gundams and they make them fight in a little arena. It's like Beyblades meets Mega Man.
Oh, I didn't process. Oh, okay. I know Gundams are.
I know what the Gundam is. They're the robots with the machine guns.
Yeah.
And the laser swords. So you brought up Yuri on Ice. I would love it if it was called Fury on Ice. That'd be way like if they directly like ripped off Blades of Glory, and they're just like, let's just call it like Fury on Ice. But they called it Yuri on Ice, which
that would be funny.
Well,
he's Yuri, and then one of the rivals is Yuri, right?
I know nothing about this. I was hoping you would explain this to me.
Oh, really? Oh gosh. I've only seen a couple episodes here and there because my roommate and best friend watches it, and I sometimes pass and like go through the living room. But Yuri on Ice isn't, as it suggests, it's an ice skating anime, and it's really well done. I feel like the animation and stuff, it's very pretty. But there's this, obviously this guy, and he's. I was waiting on you. He's okay. There's this guy, and he's an ice skater, and I don't know the backstory of him. But he's supposed to be like really, really good, and then there's this like, obviously there's competitions, and they bring in ice skaters from all around the world, and there's an American, there's an Italian, I think the Italian has like a sister who's also an ice skater or something like that. There's I think someone from France, just all nationalities, and it's just competing. And then Yuri has a coach. And they have some sexual tension between them. Oh yeah. There's a lot of ships. There's a lot of ships in that anime. But that's all I really kind of know about it. Again, I haven't like sat down and watched it all the way through, but I think it's really well animated. And it's really cool. I really like that one.
I'm gonna read the synopsis from the Yuri on Ice Wikia. And it goes, Yuri on Ice revolves about Yuri Katsuki, who carried all of Japan's hopes on his shoulders to win at the Grand Prix Finals figure skating competition. However, he suffers a crushing defeat. He returns home to Kyushu, and half feels like he wants to retire and half feels like he wants to continue figure skating. With those mixed feelings swirling inside of him, he confines himself inside his parents' house. Suddenly, Viktor Nikiforov. That's a Russian name, I assume. It sounds...
I don't know.
Nikiforov sounds very Russian to me. Appears before him, and along with his Yuri Plesetsky. Victory, Yuri, and Yuri take up the challenge on an unprecedented Grand Prix series. Does that sound correct? So
yeah.
is some Russian coach comes around or something?
That's his coach. His coach is also a former ice skater that has retired, I think. And I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but yeah, Yuri's like biggest rival is also named Yuri.
Russia. I just I clicked on his name and his country is Russia. He is male. His birthday is December 25th. That's Christmas.
That is. Yeah. That was in an episode.
I'm surprised he doesn't have his blood type. Let's see. They always have blood types. Let's read the background. Viktor is considered a living legend for winning 5 consecutive world championships, 5 straight Grand Prix titles, and numerous European championships. By the age of 16, he was already at the top of the figure skating world. Under the guidance of coach Yakov Feltzman, Viktor's home rink in is in St. Petersburg, Russia. I thought they would have more. So that's his coach. How old is he? So he's 27 at the very beginning. So really a little bit older than I am. Yeah. Okay, but he's his coach, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I can see where the sexual tension comes from then. I was expecting him to be like 40.
Oh, no, and there's actually an episode, legitimately, there's an episode where they, Yuri and Viktor get, like, rings for each other. And it's like, I can't remember, it had something to do with, like, Viktor didn't want to be Yuri's coach or something like that, but then they made, like, a promise to each other that they would stick it out until the end of the Grand Prix or the whatever big competition was. But
you know, that's like, I feel like that's sort of a common theme, is like in a lot of sports anime and anime in general, but definitely with sports anime, because it's all about teamwork and it's all about camaraderie, even on solo things like swimming too. Except they want to swim with all their friends, and that motivates them. But it's always about these like gestures. They always have to do these gestures. Do you want to see the actual page of Viktor on this website? Go ahead and look at that. There's only a couple of pictures on there, but he looks.
But can you see the sexual tension just in his face?
No, he looks kind of foppy, but not as foppy as I was expecting. And there's like no pictures past like the first like 12 inches of the page, and then all of a sudden it's just nothing but text. And I was like, well, I want to see different things going on. Give it back.
Yeah, it even says it says relationships and Yuri Katsuki. At the very first paragraph it says,
where does it say such things?
Viktor oh my god. Viktor enjoys teasing Yuri and is very physically affectionate with him.
Physically affectionate. Okay.
Though Yuri is at first very not comfortable with physical contact.
Is there a point where he goes up to Yuri and he hugs him and Yuri cries? Because I feel like I can totally.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I already see this scene clearly. So clearly. Like Yuri like sticks something in practice and he's like, beautiful Yuri, and he runs up and he hugs him, and like Yuri's crying and he's like, no one showed me this kind of like nobody's shown me this kind of respect before. And he like has like 2 tears that go down his face and they hit the ice.
pretty much.
I feel like I've already seen it. I feel like I know what to go into when seeing this show, because as much as I love anime, there's all these tropes that are present in every single one, almost every single one, and I'm like, all right. Every time there's like a happy teardrop moment, drip drip, and it's like two, and it's like one tear, boom, hits the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have a question for you. You said you didn't know tons about different animes. I would just hope that you'd heard of a little show called Slam Dunk.
Maybe. I'm only assuming that's about basketball.
I think that's a safe assumption. What do you believe Slam Dunk is, the message behind it is?
Oh, I have no idea. I can take a guess.
By the way, I haven't seen a single episode of Slam Dunk.
Oh, great.
So
I think
I'll guess and you'll guess, and then we'll come up with the actual show. I'm putting the screen away from my face. I don't know. You guess.
Okay. My guess is that it's going to be a mix between. I'm not looking. It's going to be a mix between basketball and wrestling.
A mix between both these things. Slam Dunk. Okay.
Something, or like not wrestling, but like, you know what I mean. Kind of like, which we will probably talk about in a little bit. But that thing that we just watched.
Okay. No. Okay. I'm gonna tell you, you're probably a little bit off basis. I assume that it's a story of some scrappy young men who probably don't have the best upbringing, and they want victory for their high school, because it's sort of a Coach Carter situation, but the coach is in the center of it, the players are the center of it, and they want to win for both their city and themselves and for their school, and so they can go off out of high school with pride and feel like they've accomplished something with their seemingly worthless lives.
See, you're thinking more of like stereotypical sports. I'm just thinking like campy kids show.
But I don't think this is a kids show. Let's go. I think we have a winner just by this first line. Hanamichi is a delinquent outcast and leader of a gang.
Oh my god.
Who was rejected 50 times. He encounters Haruko, who recognizes Hanamichi's athleticism and introduces him to the Shohoku basketball team. Hanamichi was reluctant to join the team at first, as he had no previous sports background, and because of the 50th girl rejecting him for a basketball player. But despite his immaturity and high temper, he provides to be a natural athlete with potential, initially joining the team in order to impress Haruko, but later becoming to love the sport and working his best to help the team win the nationals. I feel like...
So very stereotypical. Very anime.
I feel like I was definitely closer. I feel like
very close.
It was not what I was fully expecting. I guess there's definitely certainly a main character in the show. In what's his name? Haruko? No, not Haruko. Haruko was the friend. In Hanamichi, being the main character, initially a slacker, a good for nothing but fighting. He's a leader of the featured Shaka. His gang name. You know, them Japanese gangs. Total side note. Have you watched, Durarara? Durarara. Yeah, with all the blue squares and the yellow scarves. If you don't know what we're talking about, Durarara is a very complicated show with tons of characters, and it switches perspective all the time, but it's cool. It's like all the characters are pretty well developed. Anyway, it's about this city. It's either like, I don't remember where it is. I don't even know if it's an actual city in Japan. I think it's not. I think they created a city It may be a real city in Japan. I don't know. But it's just filled with gangs, and it's filled with all this mysticism as well. And it's fun, and for some reason, the second series is twice as long as the first, and came out like 7 years afterwards.
See, yeah, I haven't seen the second, whatever season, series, whatever you want to call it. But I've seen.
It's solid. It's a solid show. It's solid. It's very enjoyable. It's violent. And if you can make sure that you can get all the swearing out of it you can, then I would suggest that. So, that's an older one, this show. Let me go. This Slam Dunk, let's go a little bit. So the first episode of Slam Dunk came out October 16th, 1993.
Oh, in the 90s.
So it's an older one. That may be why you haven't heard of it, but it's fairly popular, and I would say a good probably jumping off point. But what I would say is a great jumping off point is Hajime no Ippo, which is a manga that's been going on for decades now as well, and it's actually 3 separate series, not just like different seasons, but 3 like separate series, and you can tell there's a different
in the 90s
animation team for each one and a different writing team for each one of the series. It's not like there's a season 2 or a series 2 and it's really just like a season 2. There's 3 separate series. Do you know anything about this show?
Mm-mm.
Do you even know what sport it is?
Say it again.
What if I said it was called Hajime Ippo? The first anime, Hajime no Ippo.
I feel like
Fighting Spirit.
Oh, is that a wrestling one?
No.
Boxing. Oh no, that's a boxing one.
Yeah, it's a boxing
one.
Yeah. Do you know anything past that there's boxing involved?
No. But see, with a lot of these animes though is like maybe the title sounds familiar and I don't really know the plot. I would assume if I saw like a little clip or something, then I would probably be like, oh yeah, that anime, or like I've seen something about this before.
Okay. Have you seen a scene where a little man, almost Little Mac-ish, throws his fist back and forth, and just kind of a left, right, just over and over again until he just pummels the crap out of somebody's face?
No, but that sounds
okay.
amazing.
Well, wait till we get Hajime no Ippo Rising, and you'll see why it's not so amazing. But It does follow Makunouchi Ippo, who is kind of this not a shut-in, but a very shy young man who first starts getting bullied by some guys at school. He's a really nice guy. He's a really good kid. He helps his mom at their fishing business after his father dies, and he's up 4 a.m. every morning and helping out before school, and he goes to school smelling like worms and fish, and people pick on him because of that, and he's just tired of it. And then there's one afternoon where his bullies are picking on him, and this one guy, Takamura, comes through and just is like, how about you guys pick on somebody who can fight back? And they're like, all right, whatever, old man. And then, even though he's like 22 or something in the first episode, but they're like, whatever, old timer, because apparently that's old in Japan, 22. But they try to fight him, and he dodges all their punches. All he has to do is kind of move out of the way, and they're already running into stuff and everything. And then he throws one punch, and the guy's like, I don't remember if actually he ever throws a punch. I think he just kind of he just kind of touches him just with his 2 fingers or a thumb or something, and they're all off balance and everything, and they're like, oh, whatever, and they run away because he's just like dodged everything, and they're still tired and exhausted, and he's just standing there all confident. And then he's like, hey kid, what's your name? And he's like, Makanouchi. And he's like, you shouldn't let guys pick on you like that. Let me come to my gym. And it's not his gym, but it's where he trains. And he finds out that this guy Takamura is the Japanese champ, middleweight champ. And he's like, all right, kid. Now and he's like, let me just show you how to throw a punch or something. And he's like, he learns how to throw a punch and whatever. And then he's like, well, I want to learn how to defend myself. I want to be a boxer like you. And he's like, you'll never be a boxer like me. And so he has to learn how to twist his fist, and Takamura punches a tree and all the leaves come down, and Ippo has to like grab a bunch of leaves with his hand, and so he has to learn how to like spiral his fist when he punches and whatever. And he starts to get good, and he starts to get better at it.
He starts to get gooder.
He starts to get decent at it, and then he gets his boxing license, which a lot of people don't know you need to do if you want to box. You need to get a boxing license.
Like everywhere?
Like everywhere.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Like in any place where you're not doing an illegal street fight, you need to have a boxing license. MMA you don't need to, but boxing you need to get a boxing license to do. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yep. Unless you're doing just bare knuckle fist fights, like middle of the alley brawls, you need to have a boxing license. So he gets his boxing license, and he enters like this rookie tournament. And there's in the rookie tournament there is also a Russian guy who he ends up having to fight, and that guy's extremely good, and that's like his toughest fight or whatever. Or maybe, oh no, I can't remember. Maybe that's later. I don't know. There's a Russian guy in that show too. There might even be two there, but he that's one of like the first impossible fights for Ippo. Anyway, at the gym, he does run into a rival very early on as well, which is just a common thing in all these. And I guess every single sports anime, you need to have a rival because there's no bad guys in sports anime. Every once in a while there is a bad guy, and you're like, oh, you're just a despicable person though. Like, they have to make them truly like despicable. Anyway, Ippo goes on and on and on until he fights this guy named he meets the Japanese champ that is in his weight class, and that guy beats him senseless. And then that guy challenges, says, I don't want to be the Japanese champ anymore. I'm going into the world competition. And he rises through, and that guy, oh, I can't remember his name, and it doesn't matter, but that former Japanese champ gets the crap beaten out of him. And so, you know, there's somebody stronger. It kind of shows that there's somebody stronger out there. And anyway, Ippo ends up having to fight his guy that he already fought, Rocky, and the first series ends with Ippo becoming the lightweight Japanese champion. So
cool. So another whatever it's called, stereotypical underdog.
Yeah, but this one's actually really good, and it actually is pretty well paced, and you see him get stronger, and you see him get tougher. And then they go into the second series where the second series is not as strong, I'd say. There is a few cool fights in the second series, but story-wise, not as good. Animation-wise, better, and like the choreography better, but not as interesting. And then you get to Rising, and you're like, oh, this is just a watered down version of what this series used to be. He's constantly doing his special move, which is called the Dempsey roll, where he does weave back and forth into like this figure eight, and he just goes left, right, left, until he gets enough momentum where he just goes left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, until he just pounds the other person into submission. And he does it like every chance he can in the third series.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that one's pretty long standing.
Was that one on Toonami?
No, this one is one that I had to like find for myself, and it is great. I saw most of, or at least half of the first series on YouTube, and then I couldn't find any more on YouTube, and I went to another
a little bit off subject. It's about anime. I remember one night, sometime in middle school, I was searching on the interwebs, and I came across this anime, and I only watched the first episode, and I just remember that it had something to do with kind of like robot people, in a sense. And it was a more mature anime. It was very, very violent. I just remember being like, this is a lot of blood. And I remember it had something to do, and then the characters hung out on rooftops and something like that. And I don't know. I've been trying to find it ever since, and I have no idea what it is or what it's called or what it has to deal with. Because this was...
It was really bloody. I feel like that could be a lot of things.
It was either like end of middle school or early high school. I was just searching stuff on the web, and I came across that, and that was a...
They hung out on rooftops, you say. And they hung
it
out
was
on
like
rooftops, you say.
Yeah, they were on rooftops. I remember that. There were rooftops and robot people and...
You know what? Let's take a break and let's look this up.
Okay.